Hey, it's Shannon Olsen with my Utah agents, and we're here with some other special guests. So, introduce yourself.
Patrick Vanderhoof, buyer agent on my Utah agents.
Yes.
My name is Amy Craig, and I'm with my Utah agents.
My name is Bryce Olsen, and I'm with Citywide Home Loans.
So we have a panel here. We're going to be talking about how to buy in today's market. So obviously you guys are more than likely aware it is a hot seller's market. So you as a buyer obviously a lot of times don't have the advantage. So we want to talk to you about how you can look appealing to a seller, to structure a winning offer, and how to have all your ducks in a row so the process goes as smooth as possible every step of the way. So first and foremost, step number one is getting financing. That's why we have Bryce here. So Bryce is a lender. How long have you been a lender?
14 and a half years.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about your job and what it entails.
That's a very broad question. How much time do we have?
Keep it short and sweet.
So my job is essentially to kind of get a history of the client. I call it the rule of two. We're going to go essentially back 2 years on everything, 2 years of residence, job. We're going to look at pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, just kind of a total financial picture and make sure that we're putting people in a budget that they can afford.
Okay, and that's what you do as soon as they get under contract, or when do you do that process?
Preferably before they even start looking at houses.
Okay.
And
why do
if
you
they
suggest
don't do
doing
that
that?
up front, more often than not, is what happens is they're looking at homes that don't fall into their budget. So it's very important to do as much of that up front as you can, so that when you are getting set up on a hot sheet or a search and you're driving around looking at homes, you're looking at houses that you can legitimately buy and are in your budget instead of way outside of your price range.
And I know that a lot of sellers request that only pre-qualified buyers actually go through their home for showing. So when we go to set up showing, sometimes they'll ask, hey, is your client pre-qualified? Have they talked to a lender? Because they don't want looky-loos. They don't want to get their house all cleaned up, take dogs out of the home, walk the kids down to the park. I mean, it really does take time and effort to have your home show ready and available for all of these showings. So they don't want to put all of that effort behind it if it's truly a buyer that doesn't qualify for their home. What's some other reasons why a buyer would want to get pre-qualified before even setting up a search or going out to preview homes?
I know a lot of people need assistance with the down payments, and I know that you work with Utah Housing and other programs, and so you can, it's pretty important that they know it's available to them.
They're different loan programs if
Yeah,
they don't have down payment funds.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so knowing your loan options is a good thing.
I mean, it's common in other areas that the bank part doesn't always come first. Getting pre-approved with the lender doesn't always come first. When you're going car shopping, a lot of people want to go out and test drive a bunch of different cars, look at a bunch of different cars, and then once they zero in on, okay, I'm going to buy this car, that's when they now find out whether or not they can buy it. Where a house, so it's just kind of a habit that that's what they're used to doing, but with a house, you really need to do it the other way around, and you need to get all of your financial ducks in a row first, so that when you are out looking at homes, one, you're within your budget. Two, in this market, you're going to have to move fast with getting a pre-approval letter over to the seller. They're going to call me more often than not, or I'm going to call them and kind of have a conversation to help sell our offer to that seller. But if I haven't completed all of that, I'm not in a position where I can really put our offer in a strong position. And so they really need to change their mindset on what everybody's used to, because the norm has just been, well, I'm going to look at houses first and find one I like, and then I'll see if I can buy it.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, in this market, I think that's huge, just because the homes are selling so quickly.
Yeah.
And without a pre-qualification letter, you really don't have
I know
that
me
chance
as
to
a
have
listing
anything
agent,
to
if
do.
I don't have proof, financial documentation to support that offer, I almost treat it as if it's not even an offer on the table. Because I don't want to present and get my sellers' hopes up if they haven't even been down that road to find out what type of financing how much earnest money, how much down payment, all of that really truly needs to be known. And like you said, it's a huge factor as far as timeline, because homes don't sit on the market longer than a few days,
Right.
sometimes not even a day.
Yeah.
So timeline's a huge thing. I would say budget to me is also big, because you don't want to think you can afford a $300,000 home and only want a $1,000 monthly payment. So to know, what does my budget look like per month that I want to spend, and what reflection is that on the purchase price that I need to stay under. Loan type too. If they can only go FHA or Utah Housing, you don't want to be out there showing them homes that can only go cash and conventional, because maybe they need some repairs. So now you're showing them homes that they can't even get their right financing on. So really you're just wasting everybody's time at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or dangling the carrot in front of them,
Yeah.
and then they can't even have it. It's like ripping a sucker out of a baby's mouth. They're going to cry about it just because they can't have it anymore,
Yeah.
you know?
Or the assumption that you won't qualify for a loan because, he's the specialist and he can help you
Yeah.
understand if you will, or what steps you need to get to that level. Of what
Yeah,
you
that's a
want.
great point.
Yeah.
So a lot of buyers will come into my office and say, oh, well, we don't think we can buy right now. A lot of people do live paycheck to paycheck, and they might not have a lot of money for earnest money, which is like use like a security deposit on the transaction. Or they think, oh, I don't have any down payment funds in addition to that, or I don't have money for my own closing costs. Just know that there are many options for you guys, and that's why it's really important to talk to Bryce or a specialized lender to talk about what your financing options are. What other things?
And it doesn't, about how much time does it take?
To do a full buyer's consultation, you're probably 30 to 45 minutes.
So it's a quick process. It's not a whole day process to get that.
They can.
That's the initial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they can be longer if there's some things we have to get more information on. Maybe how they get paid is a little bit different. We might need some information from the employer to be able to finish, but on average, it's going to be about 45 minutes, and then there are some of those that we have to take some extra steps and maybe get an underwriter involved and ask some questions. But
I think that's another good reason to get pre-qualified before, because there are probably a lot of people that don't know things that are on their credit that might need a little bit of help, and that's something that you can
Yeah.
obviously.
well,
help with
there's
upfront.
multiple parts to that too. Is they might be online and they have a budget and they're calculating stuff online, but majority of online mortgage calculators are not accurate. That's just they don't have all
The
of that.
majority are not accurate.
They don't have all of the right information to be able to accurately calculate a
Like, they don't
payment.
include taxes and insurance, right? Isn't that
They
the-
might estimate it, but it's the biggest one it's not going to factor in is mortgage insurance.
Or
So-
HOA fees.
Or that. I mean, a lot of people, so they're thinking, well, I ran a calculation online and this house was $1,000 a month, but really it's $1,250.
Yeah.
And so, actually having somebody review that information is really important. And they also, again, going back to experience, that could be, well, I bought a car a month ago and they didn't even ask me for a pay stub. And so they just think it's an easier
But
process
again, we're
than it
beyond
really is.
past the days of stated income. We don't want to
So-
go back to that.
So it's completely different than any other process, and so it's just a matter of
Well, let's talk about this, because inventory is low, and what that means to you as a buyer is that there's not a lot of homes on the market for sale, but demand is still high by other buyers. So that means more than likely, if it's a great home, you're going to be competing for that home. You may get it, and that's amazing. We'll talk about some ways to structure a winning offer without giving away all of our secrets. But also, you may not be able to get it. You may put your best foot forward and they still end up picking somebody else. So what about, a lot of people, obviously, they say patience is a virtue. It's hard for people to wait, and they're trying to stay in this budget, yet anything that comes on either is going quickly or is already under contract. So then they start thinking, well, maybe if I go higher on my budget, I'm going to find something. And then we go back to, well, are you okay if your monthly payment goes higher? Because typically you can qualify for more than truly what you want to spend every month. And we really don't want to have people reach their maximum budget and end up moving in and kind of having buyer's remorse and having a payment that's really a stretch to make every month. So can we kind of talk about that scenario that commonly is talked about?
Yep, I mean, Patrick and I just had it with a client. He was, I mean, it was probably his 6th house, something like that. Before we finally got under contract, and fortunately we both knew the listing agent in that one, so that kind of helped us out. But there was many times that he looked at possibly changing his budget, and ultimately we had that conversation, and we stuck to the plan, which was, this is where you want to be. We're just going to have to, that one's going to happen when it does finally happen. But yeah, more often than not, when people start trying to change their budget and increase it, we end up in a frustrating situation because, again, there's a chance that they're going to be in a bidding war for that, and then you might have to increase it again. So I don't like putting somebody in a situation where they're going to be maxed out.
So, but you're available for them during the process with the changes, because there's multiple changes during buying a home. And those amounts will change, and so we're always here, agents and the lender, you know, we work together to make sure you guys get the most current information.
Our last one he offered on, I think, 6 different houses, but I'd be willing to bet I ran somewhere around 35 different payment scenarios for him on different houses.
Right.
So,
But that's really good to have that diligence on your budget before you lock it in and put something under contract with the seller, because then they are then more than likely taking the initiative to go out and try to find another home for them to buy. So you don't want to get this ball rolling. That really does become a snowball effect if you don't have all your ducks in a row.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's really good to obviously know your budget. So, and be patient, and just know that when the right one is meant to be, it will be. And we have ways to help you put your best foot forward. So a lot of times, you know, people think, oh, I'm going to offer them this much for their house. I'm going to offer them full asking price. That's so strong. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, but honestly, if you're competing against 5 other buyers, more than likely that seller is going to get multiple offers that are above asking. And some of them may or may not be asking for closing costs in return on behalf of the buyer. And if you look at the top number only, then you're just being hyper focused on that, when really what matters to a seller is what they walk away with, what their net is. When all the numbers shake out and the cards land where they may, it's truly what that bottom number is to the seller. That's what they're looking at. And then when they look at that top number, then they're going to look to say, hey, is this buyer even offering a price on a home that's even realistically going to appraise, or are we all shooting for the stars and we're just waiting 3.5 weeks to find that out, and the cookie crumbles last minute, and you know they're under contract on one to buy and then they have a delay and all of that. So it's really just proactive to have the right professional educating you on how to structure a winning offer. Try to pull out all the stops if you can, but obviously we're here to guide you and tell you what your options are. From there, it's up to you on what you feel comfortable with. So obviously there's more than just price. You want to look at closing costs.
Yep.
Right now, would you say it's customary for people to ask for closing costs when making an offer?
Yep.
Okay. If they want to say they're running against multiple offers, would you suggest they still ask a seller to pay for?
No, I wouldn't ask that they suggest that they do that
Okay.
at all, and maybe go in with higher closing fees. Or earnest money. Sorry, go in with a higher earnest money, because that's one thing that they're looking at. And the earnest money does apply to the loan, so it doesn't just go into a black hole. So a lot of people think that, their earnest money check is not on top, it's on top of the loan amount.
Yeah.
But they don't know that it actually gets applied in there.
Towards down payment.
Yeah.
So it's still your money, but it's showing the seller, hey, but we look, we're financially stable. We have all this amount that we're willing to put more skin in the game, more money on the table. Of course, we look at all the deadlines and make sure we're protecting you as a buyer along the way. But that's a good way to wow the sellers, rather than, hey, I only have $500 and that's it. And if I lost that, then I don't have earnest money for another house. You know what I mean? So it's really good to show these sellers, because again, you're winning them over. You're trying to get that emotional trust in them. So that's another amazing thing.
And this still applies to new builds. too, you know, in the field.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do the loans with new builds, and there's
Yeah,
the
new
earnest money
construction.
and, yep, so they're.
And a lot of new builds are going to ask for 5% down, 10% down. And a lot of times they won't let you make a contract and get officially under contract without having your home sold already. So if you're in a situation where you're buying and selling at the same time, just know that we do have ways and tactics to help you so you're not sandwiched in the middle of having to sell your home and creating that urgency to buy. We really try to create this buffer zone for you because obviously as a seller it's amazing and you have the upper hand, but as a buyer you're putting the shoe on the other foot, and now the roles are reversed. So we have ways and options for you on how to do that, which I think a lot of people aren't educated on what we do, and so they're scared and they don't even want to put their home on the market.
Or the importance of still getting pre-approved with
Yeah.
the new construction.
We don't want to sell your house if you can't qualify to
Yeah.
to buy another one. We don't want to make you homeless. We're not in the job of making people homeless.
Yep.
We're in the job of bringing people to home ownership.
Yeah, bridging that gap so everything's seamless for you.
I think it's also important for people who are buying to know that even if they do have a house to sell, we can also help them with that to structure the offer to where it's contingent
Yeah.
upon the home selling too. That way it still gives us time to
Absolutely.
make sure everything happens in the right timing as well. So
Well, and it's really good to know too what type of loan you're needing to go, because I know when I'm reviewing multiple offers, that's one thing that I will consider is what type of loan is this buyer getting, or all of these different buyers. How do the numbers shake out? How much earnest money are they putting down? What's their deadlines? What's their contingencies? And what type of loan are they getting? Because your different type of loan means I'm getting an idea how much down payment do you have. I'm getting an idea what great credit score or maybe not you have. I'm getting an idea on how conservative possibly the appraiser is going to be on the home and the pricing.
Yep.
So all of that's good to know. So you as a buyer need to know, what programs are out there for me and which one can I feasibly do that's also going to make me look stronger in the eyes of a seller.
And we're here to help with every step of that through the way. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't understand that, it's a lot to take in, but we want to make sure and educate you guys and help you. So we're always available.
Well, that's where I have a conversation with the listing agent. It wasn't yours. It was Amanda's. But where if we have more than one program available that we can do, whether it's we can go FHA or conventional, or we can go conventional or VA, that's a conversation I have with the listing agent and just say, hey, I am sending a pre-qual letter over as this because that is our preference, but we do have other
That's
options.
one we're doing on our one today.
We've got
Oh,
more
yeah?
than one. We've got more than one loan program available to us. Obviously, this is our preference, but if need be, we can be flexible. So then that way, that helps strengthen our position instead of, hey, this is our only option. All of our eggs are in this basket, and so if it doesn't work out, then my hands are tied. So.
Well, and
I mean, they
I know
like to know that we have some flexibility and options on our end.
I know if I were to get two different offers, one conventional and one FHA
What is
VA. I know I can't talk.
FGHA.
Blah, 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 blah. If one's conventional, one's FHA VA, I am going to prefer more than likely that conventional one because they require more down payment, higher credit scores. And if the home that I'm listing might have a couple repair items that I know are coming up on an FHA VA appraisal, then obviously, again, that's less of a headache for my seller to go towards that conventional. However, if you are going FHA and VA, you have every right to say, hey, we're going this route, and if the appraiser calls anything out, we're not going to ask you as the seller to do anything, because then again, you're saying, yes, I know we're going FHA VA. However, if there are any repairs, we're not going to nickel and dime you along the way. We're going to go ahead and do them ourselves. Or, if it's something too catastrophic, then you still have every right to counsel. So.
And so if they've already got pre-approved with the lender and they're not happy, they can have another opinion too, because the lenders
Absolutely.
work differently,
Yeah.
correct? Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want to do that 2 weeks before closing,
Yeah. But have
I
options.
had a buyer that found me online, and then he found his lender online, and he's like, oh, I'm so far in the process, I don't want to restart over, and it turned into a nightmare. And actually, he goes, hey, so is 6.5 pretty good on interest rate? And I go, 6.5? I was like, are you talking about your interest rate or your APR? Like, I was trying to get a feel because he told me his fees were crazy expensive, and APR is when they take your interest rate plus your fees factored in. So that number is always higher than your interest rate. And the APR is really good when you're shopping different loan programs or different lenders, because it's taking into consideration any and all fees, rates, everything combined. It's really good to look at that. So I was confused thinking, is he talking about his APR? Well, he sent me his documentation and it truly was interest rate.
Oh, wow.
And by the time we were literally 2 weeks before closing, his fees kept adjusting down by like $5,000 up and down. And at one point it was so high, and we're like, gosh, we're going to have to extend because he's going to need another paycheck to come up with more of his own closing costs. Well, then we go to close and it was actually $5,000. Like, they were just all over the board. So having the right realtor is uber important, but as is the right lender, because we do truly work as a team and it affects all parties.
Absolutely.
You know, it's going to affect who you use as a home inspector is going to make a huge play, which obviously we recommend Corey Wayman at High Mountain Home Inspections. And we've had other ones that we've recommended that, you know, maybe sometimes they are a little bit more careless, or, you know, they make mountains out of molehills, or overlook things, or, I mean, there's many different factors. So just know when we recommend somebody, it's truly that we're just looking out for our clients and wanting them to have the best experience possible. So every person is a part of our team. So we really want you to experience the smoothest transaction and also end up where all parties are looking out for your best interest at the end of the day.
Yeah, and not just 9 to 5. I mean,
No.
if you have questions in the middle of the night, I mean, we're agents and a team that are willing to, you know, we know that everybody has different work schedules and
Yeah.
everybody's on a different time frame, so.
I stop at 5.
No.
Well, then I'll call Shannon.
I know.
You know, Patrick and I have been on the phone exchanging texts at
9, 10.
all hours of the night.
Well, even last night I had a client call me or text me and say, hey, can you call me when you get a minute? And I called him just after 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't mean I always want to be making those calls, you
No,
know,
but we do.
because I do want to end my day and spend time with my family and my children. But guess what? If I know his brain's not going to shut off and he's going to be thinking about this all night and all of that, I know the feeling, because even though we do this all day, every day,
Yeah.
they don't. And I know what a big deal it is, and that sometimes the unknown or these questions can turn into this big, you know, manifesting all of the scary scenarios that we try to proactively make sure never happen. So I just made that phone call and eased him up and answered his questions, and hopefully he slept good last night.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
okay, so once we get your budget in place, we are going to obviously look for a home, which entails obviously setting you up on a search on the MLS.
Which you call a hot sheet. You refer to it as a hot sheet.
A hot sheet. So, and I know that's kind of a weird name, but that's what it's called on the back end of our Utah Real Estate, our MLS system. Where's some other options people can try to find homes since inventory is low?
We do for sale by owners. We'll show those.
Yeah?
Absolutely. So if you find something that is for sale by owner and you want to see it, you know, let us know and we'll be happy to contact them and get some specifics
Yeah.
on those.
Do you have any other options?
I think KSL is another good resource.
Yeah, but clicking the by owner. So just so
Right.
you know, don't get caught up in the KSL
Right.
listings that show by agent. If they're not on the MLS, they're more than likely under contract or already sold. Those agents are leaving them on there to try to get buyer leads. So make sure you're clicking the by owner. You can go on Zillow and try to find by owners as well. A lot of first sale by owners will pay a buyer's agent commission. And that's good to reiterate, is typically we work for you for free because the sellers do pay us the commissions to help you. So it's worth it for you to have that free representation that's a professional guide along the way through this intense process.
Yeah. And one thing is we work with a lot of different agents in the community, so we can see houses, we know if they're coming on the market and available. And so we can instantly let you guys know, hey, this is coming. Let's get a showing in when it's available. And so
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Yeah, I network, and we network really with a lot of colleagues because it's a collaboration, really. And so if we have some Facebook groups and different things like that that will just post, hey, I have this coming up. It's not on the market yet, but just that way it's on our radar. Sometimes we will be able to show those homes before they actually hit the market. And then I know another thing that I recommended Tori do, which she did follow through with, is searching Expires, some previous active listings that for one reason or another the seller decided not to have it active anymore, but some of those people might still actually want to sell.
Yeah.
You know, so we're willing to go above and beyond just your standard traditional, you know, oh, just looking on the MLS. We're willing to do those extra steps and help you find more inventory than what typically you can find out there.
Yeah, kind of being their voice. We want to, you know, ask questions and see what's available.
Well, and extra eyes and ears, because we're work as a team. So we talk about, hey, I have a client looking for this or that. So it's really good just to have that many more people looking out on your behalf, trying to find you the one.
Absolutely.
Once we do find them the one, then what happens?
And then we submit the offer, which you were talking about earlier, and making sure the strong points are there, and you know, making sure that they're pre-approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
What things are included in an offer, Patrick?
As far as,
Just like all the different bullet points that you go through with the buyer to say, hey, let's structure a winning offer. What would you say? So obviously purchase price is one.
earnest money, I think, is another one. That's a good one.
Your deadlines, having tight deadlines, making it not contingent upon the sale of a home obviously is more desirable. But again, if you do have a home to sell, let us talk to you about that and how we've overcome that a lot of times.
Home warranty.
Yep, home warranty, closing costs,
Yep, closing costs.
right? Repairs we already went through, what type of loan you're getting. There's many different things that we can structure in your offer. Once we get under contract, then that contract obviously comes into play and we're executing the different milestones in that contract. So the first deadline is
Due diligence.
Due diligence.
seller's disclosures.
Oh, yep.
Or buyer, yeah.
Yeah. So seller's disclosures is where the seller will disclose anything and everything they're aware about the home. However, say they've owned it 2 years, they only know 2 years worth of information and the home could be 30, 60, 80 years old. So they can only disclose truly what they know. Say you do have an older person that maybe has dementia and they've forgotten things from the 40 years they've owned the home. Take it for what it is. Again, they can only disclose what they know and what they remember. However, if they're being malicious and then say a neighbor stops by and says, oh yeah, the basement's leaked 10 times and they never disclose that, obviously that's malicious. But typically through a home inspection, when you get to your due diligence period, you're going to be able to see the signs of repairs, the signs of issues.
And on
What's
that
some other things with due diligence?
Well, on that disclosure, and it's actually a form that they fill out. Any repairs, if they put a new roof, they'll put.
Yeah, they're going to put all the good stuff about it too.
The new roof and what age it is, and so you'll see a lot of those on the disclosures. And then due diligence, schedule the home inspection during that period. You know,
Is a home inspection required?
It's not, but very highly recommended.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the reason why we highly recommend it is because it costs $300 and typically you're spending over $100,000 for this property. And you are assuming all responsibility of that home as soon as you close. Meaning you can't go back and say, oh, well, I didn't know about this, I didn't know about that. The contract states if through a normal, typical inspection process, that information could have been found by you, then you can't go back on the seller for damages. So you're assuming all responsibility of that home when you close. Hence why they give you all of these milestones, because each milestone gives you an out if something didn't happen. So the first milestone, seller's disclosures, which is where the seller tells you everything they know about the home. Say they do put on there something about, you know, water in the basement. Well, when you order your home inspection, you can tell that home inspector, hey, can you please look into this further? They said they've had no issue since. I just want to verify that it looks like the repair was done, because
Absolutely.
if you saw Corey's Facebook Live last week and he put his photos up here, you'll see there's a lot of do-it-yourself repairs.
Yep.
And you don't want that do-it-yourself repair to slip through the cracks and you end up having with major issues, especially with water. I mean, mold can grow like that. So have that home inspector look into that repair further and see if it was done appropriately.
And they can help you with questions. So as you're walking through the home, a lot of buyers will say, well, what's that? Or, you know, what's this? And a home inspector, you know, can help with those questions. So, you know, you can submit those before the home inspection. Say, hey, I had these specifics. Can you look at those? And they'll be more than happy to.
Yeah.
I think another important thing is, meth testing, that is an option during the due diligence
Yeah.
period. And then also radon.
Radon
That's
and
something
mold,
that
lead-based
can be done in
paint.
addition to the home inspection.
Yeah,
You can check into school districts, you can check into the codes, you can check into the CCNRs and HOA if it's in a townhome condo complex.
Utilities, that's another one.
Yeah, utilities. My dad lives in a part of the higher Uintas that doesn't have public sewer, and so it's on septic.
yeah.
Well, if that's a big deal to somebody and they don't want to be maintaining a septic system, then they might not want to buy the house because
Yeah.
of that.
Or some certain loans for the septic
Yeah.
going in.
Sex offender registry, property taxes, flood insurance. I mean, there's many. We have a due diligence checklist giving you ideas on what you can check for. You can go above and beyond that. You don't have to do any of it. It's completely up to you. It's a buyer's beware state, so it's all on your shoulders to do whatever and anything that you want to do.
Good.
After due diligence is over, then we go back to financing and appraisal. Can you tell us how that deadline looks?
The appraisal, there's a lot of confusion when it comes to an appraisal, that people think an appraisal is a home inspection, and they're two very, very different things. An appraiser, literally the only job of that appraiser is to assure the lender that the people buying the house, that it's a good investment. The house is worth what the purchase price is. So they'll look for obvious safety concerns and safety issues. Some are in a little bit more in depth than others, but overall they are not going to go into the depth that a home inspector is going to go into. They're very surface level, more from just an investment standpoint, that the home is worth what the asking price is. And so I always recommend people that, because I get that question a lot, is, well, I'm not doing a home inspection because we do an appraisal, right? And they're two
Well, and there
very,
might
very
be
different
repairs
things.
required by the appraiser, but
Right,
typically it's whatever's on their checklist, which will include the roof. They want to make sure it's got 5 years life left.
Depending on the loan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's a rule of thumb, is about 5. They want to make sure there's no broken window panes to make sure, people aren't getting cut and
Exposed
safety
wiring,
issues.
Exposed plumbing, missing outlets, that kind of stuff. But they're not going to go into.
But literally, they're just walking through like, choo, choo, choo,
Yeah.
choo, choo.
Yeah.
They're like, in fact, I've had sellers be really upset. They're like, the appraiser was only here like 15 minutes.
And they're not
And I'm
moving
like,
stuff or
where your
pulling
home
out stuff.
inspector's there for about 3 hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
2 to 3 hours. So hence that will just tell you by the time frame how deep they go on inspecting that
Yeah,
home.
absolutely.
So as part of that deadline, 2 things. One, we want to make sure the appraisal is back, and any repairs that are on that appraisal have been negotiated and accepted. Or if for some reason it does come in low, that's been negotiated and accepted by that deadline. And then also the financing side, we want to make sure that loan's been through the underwriting process, it's been reviewed by an underwriter, and there's not any other major concerns that are left prior to that deadline, because once we exceed it, obviously the buyer's earnest money is at risk at that point. So our job is to make sure by that financing and appraisal deadline that we're 100% sure at that point in time that we can get the loan to closing now. I mean, outside of that, there's obviously other things that have come up in the past. But,
And so on the appraisal, I wanted to talk about, we can't pick the appraiser, right?
Neither-
Correct.
I can't
Yeah.
either.
So that's a common question of who do I call for the appraiser,
Or
how do
who
I get
orders it?
Yeah, or who orders it? And
So we
can walk through
will
that?
order it, and we have an appraisal management company that we partner with, and there's a lot of them out there in the state of Utah. So we sign up with an appraisal management company. We do get to pick our panel of appraisers. So we get to select
Who's on that rotation?
5 to 6 or 7 that are on that rotation, but I don't get to say, hey, so I really want John to do this appraisal because for whatever reason we don't
Yeah.
get to do that. And a lot of times I don't even know who actually has the appraisal until
It comes
I get it back.
Yeah.
I'll get updates as far as when inspections are scheduled and when it's due.
Can you go into why it's on a rotation basis and you can't pick it?
It's just so there's not a conflict of interest.
So it's an unbiased third
Right,
party
they want it to
opinion
be
of value.
as neutral of an opinion as possible, so that they don't, and they don't want me to try to influence the value. And actually, if that appraiser has any type of a relationship with either the agents or the homeowner, they can't accept that order. So I have had it come up before where an appraiser took an order and he got going in the process and then come to find out he was related to the seller. And so he had to make a phone call at that point and say, hey, I can't do this appraisal, I'm related to the seller, so you're gonna have to send it to somebody else. And so he...
Well, and in Utah, everybody's related to everybody.
So they just want it to be as unbiased as possible, because it is what it comes down to is if that loan ever goes bad for whatever reason at some point in time, everybody wants to make sure that all of their bases are covered.
So
And
you
there's not a question.
order the appraisal and you make sure that it meets the deadlines and.
Yeah.
And then he gets the report back, sends it to the client and to us. We get CC'd on it. Because obviously we want to ensure it meets everything.
Yep, and it goes back to, that the agents really work closely with the lenders to make sure that the timelines are met and everything is seamless.
Yeah. So, and then once appraisal occurs, then obviously you submit it back into underwriting. Can you talk about the underwriting process?
We'll put it into initial underwriting approval before the appraisal comes back, just so if anything comes up on the buyer side versus the property side, we can take care of that at the same time. And then when the appraisal comes back, the goal at that point is that we have any remaining conditions that are needed from the underwriter on the buyer side with the appraisal, and everything goes back in for a final approval at that point.
When you get final approval, what happens then?
Then everybody gets to schedule closing.
Woohoo! Exciting!
Around final approval, they're going to get their closing disclosure, which is kind of the new, I guess not really new, but newer. A closing disclosure has to go out 3 days prior before settlement.
And this is kind of where title comes in.
Yeah.
So this is where, when we're doing deadlines, you may have a settlement deadline of, say, March 26th, but really my settlement deadline is 3 business days prior to that, because if I don't get that closing disclosure out by that deadline,
Then you're
we're
going to
not
inevitably
making the
have to push
26th.
that out. Yeah.
So I essentially now have 2 deadlines I have to pay attention to, and make sure that that gets out in time that we can actually sign on the day that's in the contract.
Yeah. Cool.
And it has to be signed when it goes out.
Yeah. Even if that's digitally signed. So
Yep.
that's a good thing to reiterate too.
Absolutely.
A lot of times with time is of the essence, and this day and age with technology, we will do an e-signature program for you. If you have a smartphone, if you have internet access on your computer, you can digitally sign. It tracks your IP address, you adopt a fake signature, and it's as legal and binding as a wet signature. So just know that we really do try to accommodate things, make it as easy as possible for you, so you're not having to come into our office to sign everything. And a lot of times it is time's of the essence, so you can just get something, get it negotiated or written up, send it over, you have it back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, especially for the out-of-state people that we
Yeah.
help. We work with a lot of military or people moving in from California or Montana,
Oh,
the
yeah.
different areas. And so, we can digitally do everything. You don't have to fly out to Utah
Yeah.
for us to do that. I mean, we could do on-site,
Yeah.
with the phones or like you were saying with the signatures.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
That's
And with
absolutely
everything being
available.
electronically signed now, something I'll share is, you still need to read what you're signing.
Yes, absolutely.
very important.
We get a lot of questions on documents that were already signed. So, we've had it where somebody signed their name a certain way throughout the entire loan process, and then at the very end they're like, oh, well, I want my name to be this, and it's
Right.
like, well, you signed everything along the way as this, and at that point we couldn't change it.
Right.
And so I say, just, it's very easy to get that email and just click through and sign everything, but you still need to pay attention to what is coming over and
Oh, yeah.
and read it and make sure that what you are signing, you understand, because it is
legal and binding.
And so
Yeah.
don't
It's a
just click
contract.
through and
It's a
sign it,
legal
actually
binding
read it.
contract.
Yes, and we can't just update the contracts with that digital signature. Every
No.
time we make a change, we'll send it back and have that digital
Absolutely.
signature.
Yeah. So, and it's really good too. So say you're going out, you find the right one and you're making an offer, and it's 8:00 at night, everybody's got to go home. We as agents will still end up staying up late at night writing an offer, because again, we're hustlers, we're hungry, we're humble, and we have hearts. So we're looking out for you and making sure we do what we can on our end. So say, for example, we get home, it's 8:30 at night, we're writing up a contract, we're gonna go ahead and send it over to you, but we can make that phone call and say, hey, do you have time to review this? So they have it pulled up on their screen, and we'll go through the sections with them to ensure that they're educated on what it is that they're signing.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, so then all parties are in the know, there's no surprises that come up at the end. We can do addendums, which mean like adding to the contract or changing parts of the contract. As long as both people sign and agree, you can make changes along the way. Typically what changes is if there is appraisal required repairs or repairs based on inspection that are safety related or structural. Sometimes price may change if appraisal comes in low, or say closing costs not as much as needed, so we're going to reduce that as well as the purchase price. So there's some changes that happen along the way, but that's why it's really good to have professionals like our team to really help assist you. And obviously we're here to earn your business and get you to the closing table. We just had one yesterday that they came into our office a couple weeks ago and they couldn't believe that they were even possible to buy a home, and now they're already closed and they're super excited, and it's funded and recorded, and it feels really good to help people invest in themselves and become homeowners. So
Yep.
if they need to reach us, you guys can call our team number at 801-737-5289, or they can reach you to get pre-qualified at
801-644-4443.
anything else you guys want to wrap up with.
Well, I think that's great.
Hey.
Great,
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.